behind me was built in 1588. Anyone know what happened in 1588? A very important date in English history. Come on.
Shakespeare was
No, pretty close though, I think.
He was nearby.
The Armada, well done. He's not the weakest link. Well done. Well done. Yeah, the Spanish Armada was in 1588. So in the year of the Spanish Armada, in the middle of Queen Elizabeth's reign, 1588, this house was built. But it's haunted by a lady who lived here and died here again during the English Civil War in the 1640s. The Becaue family lived here. Like most of Oxford families, they actually supported the Puritans. They're typical of Oxford, really. The university supports the royal cause, the town supports the parliament cause, the parliamentary cause. But most of Oxford families would have remained in Oxford, otherwise their house would have been completely, taken over by royalist troops. So the Becaue family were here. They had a beautiful young daughter called Prudence, who unfortunately fell in love with one of the dashing young cavaliers, who was obviously of the enemy. And in fact, he was one of the personal guard of Queen Henrietta Maria, the wife of Charles I, who was in residence at Merton College just down here. And she had her own personal guard, one of them a dashing young cavalier, who fell in love, or at least, well, I hope it was mutual. They fell in love with each other. And of course, the family were horrified. She was literally sleeping with the enemy. They threw her out the house, but at that time she didn't really care. She was in love. The only problem was he was forced elsewhere. He was a soldier. He wasn't necessarily. He had to go elsewhere. She couldn't go with him, but she made many attempts to get in contact with him. She was allowed back into her family home, but they weren't exactly welcoming. She had given the family a horrible name by sleeping with the enemy. But she was still hopeful that he would return. And apparently, whenever the doorbell went here, she came rushing down the stairs, and of course, he never returned. Whether he died or perhaps typical man went off with somebody else, we're not really sure. But whatever happened, he never returned to Prudence. Prudence died of a broken heart. She slowly starved herself to death. Her family didn't care. In fact, they were probably glad to get rid of her. And she's still here. She's still here, dear Prudence. Pretty benign ghost, I have to say. Now, this has now been turned into a hotel, by the way. No one actually lives here anymore. But the people that lived here before felt her presence. When you go out convinced that you turned everything off, you come back and everything would be turned on. The television, the lights, the doors would be open, as if someone had been inside your house. And I guess the same thing's happening here at the hotel. I'd like to think so. So Oxford now has 2 haunted hotels. I'll show you another one later. But now you know why this hotel, I think it's what's it called, the Old Bank Hotel, the Quad Hotel, I'm not sure what it's called, but anyway, this is now a hotel, and I assume it's haunted by poor Prudence. She also, by the way, is buried in the chancel of the church, but she died here and she haunts this house. Alright, well, let's go down. Oriel College here on the other side of the street, and as well as building these colleges in enclosed squares, they also sometimes surrounded them with high walls to provide further protection from the townspeople. And this area, by the way, when it was residential, like most of Oxford, by the way, it's now student accommodation, but when it was residential, it was the most seedy, dangerous part of the city. In fact, it was the red light district. It was the nasty corner of town. And quite by coincidence, by the way, this was also where Bill Clinton lived when he was a Rhodes Scholar. In fact, these lovely almshouses here on the left, which belong to University College where Clinton studied, was where he lived as a Rhodes Scholar here, by the way. And you might be interested to know that his address, well, they actually changed the name. Behind me it was Grove Place, and the street we're on was Grove Street. Now you can imagine what everybody called it. This was a red light district. Grope Place, and in fact this was called Grope Something Very Crude, which I can't repeat in polite company. Grope Something Very Crude Street. This was where we are now standing. So that was actually Bill Clinton's address when he was a student in Oxford. Grope Place, Grope Street, or at least they changed it, as I said. In fact, they changed it because everybody called it by these crude names. And just sort of perhaps prove my point. Randolph Churchill, father of Winston Churchill, was a student at Merton College, just down the end of the lane here. When he was a student here at Merton, he apparently made regular visits to this part of the town, and he caught a very nasty disease which killed him prematurely. I guess it haunted his brain. Anyway, it was a very horrible disease that you catch sometimes when you visit places like this. And he killed him very prematurely, as I said, and he's now buried at Blenheim Palace, which I believe he haunts Randolph Churchill, the father of Winston Churchill. So it was a pretty bad neighbourhood, I have to tell you. Now, of course, it's only students, so it's not so bad. All right, so let's go down to Right, well the college on your left in this direction is the oldest college in Oxford. There is a dispute actually to which is the oldest college, but there is no doubt as to which college has the oldest buildings. It is this one here, Merton. It has the oldest quad, mob quad that I mentioned. It has the oldest college chapel that we've just walked past, and we'll walk past it again. And it has the oldest college library, which is on the first floor. Well, if you're American, some of you, it's on the floor above, ground floor, on the building just behind us here. And this is the oldest library.